I remember her standing at the top of that stairway and saying to me, "We're at war," like that. And I had no idea. That was December 7th, 1941. First of all, I was an only child, which had a pretty neat existence for someone with mother and dad both worked, and I learned to take care of myself pretty well. My earliest remembrance is that my dad was laid up. He had been a steel worker in a building of downtown Chicago, the Palm Olive building and things like that, 20 and 30-story buildings. And he was laid up with serious leg problems, and my mother had to go to work, and so I went to a boarding school at the age of 5. It was St. Joseph's Academy in LaGrange, Illinois, and sometimes I wouldn't see my mother and dad for a couple weeks, but I understood it from a standpoint. It was the Depression was on, and anyone that could work worked. And it was a necessary thing, and I understood it as a young boy, 6 years old or so. And it taught me self-sufficiency in a way that, I don't know, it just was part of my life. My grandmother had gone through World War I, had sons in World War I, and I just remember, and it's like yesterday, she's standing up about 10 feet away from me, maybe not that far, and I came in from playing football, and she said to me, "We're at war," like that, and wow, it got, because she had sons that served in World War I. I was probably, about 19 and a half, probably. I enlisted a month before the draft took place in the U.S. And then went overseas, and we had a chance to volunteer for the Airborne, and I did. I enlisted and selected my branch of service because I was going to go. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and so I enlisted in the Corps of Engineers, thinking that, yep, that's where I'd go. Well, it was a long time before I ever saw anything about being a mechanical engineer. I volunteered for the 101st directly. My buddy, Ellie Chase, we both had what they call MOSs, which is the skill level, or what you were capable. And our MOS was for electricians. We had gone to electrical school. They offered both of us a commission, a corporal's commission immediately, which was pretty good. And Ellie took that, and he went to the 82nd and was an electrician, and went all the way to Berlin and sold Mickey Mouse watches to the Russians. And I went to the 101st and saw combat almost immediately. That was a big attraction to people because that was double what you were getting in paid. You know, in fact, it was more than double because it was an extra $50 a month. And at that time, I think the Army was still at $35, but they were heading toward 50 at that time, but it wasn't there yet. And not only that, my feeling of it, and that's the way it stays in my mind today, I was with a bunch of guys that were serious about winning World War II. The training that we had was diabolical. Jump school sergeants, as I said, they weren't really interested in all the training they were going to give you. They were interested in the fact that, or the realization that you were going to go to combat and make parachute jumps into enemy territory, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to know if you were going to chicken out in the door, freeze in the door, as they call it, which is, and that was a very real thing. I can remember a guy in front of me in our training jump in England went out the door and grabbed onto the, can you imagine this, grabbed onto the floor of the plane and hung on the outside of the plane with his bare hands. That's how afraid he was. You know, I still remember the jump school sergeant going over and going bam, bam with his jump boot on the guy's fingers, and he let go and went on, and you know, the parachute opened because they all opened automatically and so forth. But it was a long time when you went out of the plane before your parachute blossomed. And in those milliseconds of time, you were saying, come on, baby, open. In my case, I had a guy land on top of my chute after my chute had opened, and he came on and landed and walked across the top of my parachute. And I was yelling at him, slip away, and finally he literally jumped off of my chute and slid down the side of the chute and out, and then we both landed in the field. So. One night we were talking, my friend and I, and he said, you know, they're coming through to take volunteers to go into the Airborne. And one of the things was, first of all, you got $50 an extra a month for pay. But the other thing is you went directly to a unit. You weren't a replacement. And so we went down to the company day room and we volunteered. And I went to the 101st because in those days you became a member of the 101st, and then you went through jump school, where otherwise, you know, God knows where you would end up before you'd ever get assigned to a unit. And I was lucky, you know. I got E Company at a 506, and you know, it ended up to be the Band of Brothers, and it's changed my life. And as I look back at it now, that experience has been incredible as far as my life story goes.